The day the Millers moved into their new home, the sun was shining bright, birds sang in the trees lining the quiet suburban street, and everything felt like a fresh start. After years of city chaos, Rebecca and Mark were ready for peace. Their two kids chased each other across the freshly mowed lawn, their laughter echoing off the neat rows of houses, each one painted in the same pastel shades. It looked like the perfect neighborhood, safe, orderly, and friendly. Or so they thought. As Rebecca stepped onto the porch to unload the last box, a sharp voice cut through the calm. "Excuse me, you must be the new neighbors." She turned, quickly, heart skipping. Standing by the mailbox was a woman with perfectly coiffed blonde hair and a posture that screamed authority. Her sharp eyes seemed to assess Rebecca from head to toe, like a judge passing verdict. "I'm Karen," she said, her tone clipped. "Karen Thompson. I'm the head of the HOA committee here." Rebecca smiled politely, extending her hand. "Nice to meet you, Karen. I'm Rebecca Miller." Karen shook her hand briefly but didn't smile back. Instead, she pulled out a thick binder from her leather tote bag and slapped it down on the porch railing. "You should read this," Karen said, flipping it open with a practiced snap. "It's the HOA rulebook. I'll be keeping a close eye to make sure you follow every one of these." Rebecca blinked. "Oh, well, we just moved in and haven't had a chance to—" Karen cut her off. "No excuses. The lawn must be exactly 3 inches, no more, no less. Your mailbox has to be painted the approved shade of green, not that light mint you seem to prefer. And don't even think about putting up any kind of fence without prior approval. We keep this neighborhood consistent." Rebecca's smile faltered. The word consistent felt less like a compliment and more like a warning. Mark joined her. On the porch, a box still in his hands. "We'll check it out. Thanks for the heads up." Karen's eyes flicked toward him. "I'll be coming by tomorrow morning to inspect your lawn and your mailbox. I'm sure you want to avoid any violations." Before Rebecca could reply, Karen turned sharply and strode back toward her own house a few doors down. Her heels clicked like a warning bell on the concrete sidewalk. As the Millers watched her go, an uneasy silence fell over the street. That evening, as Rebecca unpacked in the quiet kitchen, Mark flipped through the HOA rulebook. The pages seemed endless, detailing everything from paint colors and landscaping to what kind of holiday decorations were appropriate. "This is insane," Mark muttered, shaking his head. "Feels more like joining a country club than owning a home." Rebecca nodded, feeling a knot tighten in her stomach. "It's not just rules. It's like Karen's watching us already." Their youngest Emily looked up from her coloring book. "Mom, can I put up my fairy lights outside?" Rebecca hesitated, then smiled gently. "Let's see what the rules say first, honey." That night, as the house settled into darkness, Rebecca lay awake, wondering who Karen really was, and what price the family might pay for wanting to call this place home. Outside, a porch light blinked on in the house a few doors down, casting long shadows across the quiet street. And somewhere in the dark, Karen's eyes seemed to watch, waiting. The morning sun had barely risen when Rebecca stepped outside, coffee cup in hand, ready to face the new day in their new home. But before she could even breathe in the fresh air, there was a sharp knock at the door. Her heart sank. She already knew who it was. Karen stood there, clipboard in hand, eyes sharp and unreadable. Without waiting for an invitation, she stepped onto the porch, scanning the yard like a hawk. "I was just coming by to inspect your lawn," Karen said briskly, flipping open her clipboard. "It looks like you've already let the grass grow beyond 3 inches. That's a violation. You have 24 hours to correct it or face a fine." Rebecca blinked. "We've only been here a couple of days. We were planning to mow this afternoon." Karen's lips tightened. "Rules are rules. You're lucky I'm giving you a chance before escalating this." Before Rebecca could respond, Karen's gaze shifted to the mailbox, a cheerful pale green that didn't match the HOA's specified shade. "And your mailbox," Karen said, pointing with a rigid finger, "needs to be repainted. The HOA's approved color palette is not negotiable." Rebecca swallowed hard, feeling the weight of Karen's scrutiny pressing down like a storm cloud. Karen's voice softened just enough to feel like a threat. "I'll be back tomorrow morning for a follow-up inspection." With that, she turned and walked away, her heels clicking with the same precision as the day before. As the door shut behind her, Rebecca's hands trembled slightly. Mark appeared in the doorway, equally disturbed. "This isn't just about keeping." "The neighborhood pretty," Mark muttered. "It's like she's marking her territory." The day dragged on in a haze of anxiety. The children played quietly, sensing their parents' tension, while Rebecca tried to focus on the endless unpacking. Around noon, an unmarked envelope slid under the front door. Rebecca picked it up, curiosity twisting into unease as she tore. It opened. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a terse message: "Comply or be watched. This neighborhood doesn't tolerate outsiders who disrupt the order." No signature, no return address. Her breath caught in her throat. Who could have sent this? Was it Karen or someone else? Mark frowned, pacing the living room. "This just got serious. We need to be careful." That evening, the Millers set to work mowing the lawn, repainting the mailbox with the precise shade Karen had demanded. Yet as they worked, Rebecca caught movement from the corner of her eye, a shadow slipping behind a tree across the street. "Did you see that?" she whispered to Mark. He shook his head. Probably just a neighbor. But Rebecca wasn't convinced. The feeling of being watched was growing heavier, like invisible eyes tracing her every step. Later that night, Rebecca sat on the porch, staring into the darkened street. She wondered what kind of community they'd really moved into. A place where neighborly smiles hid sharp knives, where control was currency and dissent dangerous. A soft rustling sound made her glance toward the side yard. A faint glimmer caught her eye. A small camera, barely noticeable, mounted low on the fence post facing their property. Her heart hammered. "Mark!" she called inside, voice barely above a whisper. "Someone's watching us." The silence that followed was deafening. The next morning, the Millers gathered in the kitchen, whispering about the camera they had found. Mark examined the tiny device, shaking his head in disbelief. "This isn't just about rules anymore. Someone's spying on us." Rebecca's mind raced. Could it really be Karen behind this? Or was there something bigger lurking beneath the surface of their picture-perfect neighborhood? Determined to find answers, Rebecca decided to reach out to their neighbors. Maybe someone else had seen or felt the same creeping fear. She knocked. On the door of the house next to theirs, the one with the porch light that always flickered on at dusk. An older man, Mr. Jenkins, answered cautiously, eyeing her like she was a stranger intruding on a secret. "Hi, Mr. Jenkins." "I'm Rebecca, your new neighbor," she said, forcing a warm smile. "I wanted to ask, have you ever noticed anything strange around here? Like cameras or unusual letters?" Mr. Jenkins sighed heavily, stepping aside to invite her in. The living room was filled with photographs of the neighborhood from decades past, all neat and smiling faces. "You're not the first to ask," he said quietly. "But people are scared. Karen's got a hold on this place, not just through the HOA, but through fear." Rebecca leaned forward, heart pounding. "What do you mean?" "There was once a time when neighbors helped neighbors," Mr. Jenkins said, eyes distant. "Now, any sign of rebellion gets snuffed out. People disappear from the community forum, a place where residents used to speak freely, without explanation. I suspect Karen's influence reaches far beyond what she admits." "Disappeared?" Rebecca's breath caught. "Yes, posts vanish overnight, accounts erased, and those who dare question Karen find themselves isolated, watched, or worse." Rebecca's mind flashed back to the anonymous letter she had received. Suddenly, it wasn't just a warning. It was a threat. "Is there any way to fight back?" she asked softly. Mr. Jenkins shook his head. "We tried. A few brave souls. But Karen's grip is strong. And the HOA board? They're loyal to her. If you want to survive here, you have to play by their rules." As Rebecca left his house, the quiet street felt darker, colder somehow. She glanced back to see the flickering porch light turn off abruptly, plunging the block into shadows. That evening, back in their home, Rebecca logged onto her laptop, hoping to find that secret forum Mr. Jenkins mentioned. But when she typed, in the URL, the page was gone, replaced by a generic 404 not found error. Confused and alarmed, she searched social media groups and neighborhood chats, only to find silence. No discussions, no complaints, nothing. It was as if the voices of the residents had been erased. Mark entered the room, frowning. "Looks like someone's cleaning house?" Rebecca nodded grimly. "We're not just dealing with a strict HOA. There's a real effort to silence anyone who questions the status quo." That night, a new anxiety settled in their home. The line between neighbor and watcher had blurred. The Millers no longer felt safe, not in their own yard, not behind closed doors. Just as Rebecca was about to shut down her laptop, a new message popped up on the screen. "No sender name, no subject, just one sentence. You don't belong here. Leave before it's too late." Her fingers froze above the keyboard. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it an unspoken warning. In this neighborhood, belonging was a privilege, and outsiders were never welcome. The days that followed blurred into a tense routine. Rebecca and Mark tried to keep life normal for their children, but the growing weight of suspicion shadowed every moment. Every creak in the night sounded like a warning. Every glance from a passing neighbor felt like a secret message. One evening, after tucking the kids into bed, Rebecca stepped outside to breathe in the cool air. The street was still, but the feeling of eyes on her was unmistakable. She scanned the yard, then froze. Mounted low on the side fence, almost hidden by the creeping ivy, was the small camera she had spotted days earlier. But tonight, it had shifted slightly, angled directly at their front door. Her pulse quickened. Mark joined her, his jaw tight. "Who's doing this? Karen or someone worse?" Suddenly, a movement caught Rebecca's eye, a shadow darting behind a tree across the street. She blinked, but it was gone. The street lamp flickered overhead, plunging the block into momentary darkness. "Let's get inside," Mark said quietly. But as they retreated to the safety of their home, the sound of crunching gravel reached their ears. Footsteps approaching. Rebecca's heart pounded as a figure emerged from the shadows. A young woman, face tense, clutching a crumpled envelope. "I'm sorry to bother you," she whispered, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "But I overheard. Karen isn't just a neighbor. She's watching you. And the HOA? It's worse than you think." Rebecca's breath caught. "What do you mean?" The woman's eyes darted, fear etched into every line of her face. "The HOA controls more than just the rules. They've been recording people, using the cameras to gather dirt, to blackmail. They keep this neighborhood under lock and key with secrets." Mark frowned, stepping forward. "Who are you?" "My name's Lisa. I used to live here before Karen took over. I tried to stand up to her. I ended up having to leave, but not before I took some proof." She handed them the envelope. Inside were photos and documents, images of hidden cameras, emails from HOA board members discussing surveillance, and even threats sent to residents who questioned the HOA's authority. Rebecca stared at the evidence, shock and dread swirling inside her. This wasn't just about lawn rules anymore. This was something darker. Suddenly, the front porch light flickered violently, then went out. Mark reached for the door, but Rebecca hesitated, a cold fear wrapping around her. "That's no coincidence," Lisa whispered. They know you're onto them now. A loud knock rattled the door. Karen's voice called through the darkness, calm but icy. Rebecca! Mark! Open up! We need to talk! The three froze. Mark whispered, Do we answer? What? If it's a trap? Before Rebecca could decide, Karen's voice grew sharper. You have until tomorrow morning to fix your violations. Ignore this, and there will be consequences. The footsteps retreated, but the threat lingered in the air like a storm about to break. Lisa grabbed Rebecca's arm. You're not alone, but you have to be smart. Karen plays dirty. As Lisa disappeared into the night, Rebecca and Mark locked their doors and peered out the window, watching shadows dance in the street. Their quiet neighborhood was no longer safe, and the fight for their home had just become a battle for survival. The morning light offered little comfort. The Millers woke to a neighborhood buzzing with whispers and furtive glances. It seemed Karen's warning had unsettled everyone, some with fear, others with frustration. Rebecca knew they couldn't fight this alone. She and Mark arranged a secret meeting with the few neighbors who had dared to confide in them. People tired of living under Karen's shadow, but afraid of retaliation. That evening, in the quiet basement of a nearby community center, 7 neighbors gathered. Faces were tense, eyes darting nervously as Rebecca laid out the evidence Lisa had given them. Photos of hidden cameras, emails detailing the HOA's surveillance plans, and the chilling threats sent to dissenters. We're not just dealing with petty rules, Rebecca said firmly. This is about control, about fear. We have to stand together. One man, Greg, nodded grimly. I've seen what happens to those who cross Karen. Fines, legal battles, even social exile. A woman named Carla added, I lost my job because of her. The HOA spread rumors, made me an outcast. As plans were whispered in the dim light, a sudden chill swept through the room. Rebecca noticed a pair of eyes in the corner, a neighbor she hadn't met before. Someone who seemed too interested in every word. Mark noticed too. Do we know who that is? Before anyone could answer, a phone buzzed. Greg checked it and paled. It's a message from Karen. Rebecca read the text aloud. We know what you're planning. This neighborhood belongs to us. Stop now or face the consequences. Fear tightened the room like a noose. Suddenly, the stranger stood. I think I should leave, he said smoothly, his voice calm but with a hint of warning. Wouldn't want you all to get into trouble. Rebecca's eyes narrowed. Who are you? The man smiled thinly. Just someone who cares about peace. Goodbye. He slipped out, leaving an uneasy silence. Was he one of them? Carla whispered. Mark shook his head. Looks like we've been compromised. Panic rippled through the group. The fight they had hoped to start might already be over before it began. Back at home, Rebecca and Mark tried to shake off the betrayal, but the feeling of being watched and hunted only deepened. That night, Karen's voice echoed through the neighborhood's automated alert system. A reminder to all residents, compliance is not optional. Violations will be met with swift action. The message was cold, unyielding, a declaration of war. Rebecca stared at the ceiling, wondering how many more allies they could trust, and how many were already lost to Karen's web. Tomorrow's HOA meeting would decide everything, but one question burned in her mind. Who else was watching, waiting to strike? The day of the HOA meeting arrived with a gray, heavy sky hanging over the neighborhood. Word had spread quickly. Tensions were at a boiling point, and Karen's iron grip seemed unshakable. Rebecca and Mark arrived early at the community hall, the usual cheerful chatter replaced by a thick silence. Neighbors shuffled in, their faces a mixture of fear, resentment, and cautious hope. Karen was there, too, seated at the head of the long table, her posture regal, eyes glinting with cold control. Behind her sat the HOA board members, stoic, loyal, unmoving. As the meeting began, Karen spoke first, her voice steady but with an edge. This community is built on rules. Rules that protect our property values and our way of life. Anyone who challenges these rules threatens us all. Murmurs rippled through the room, some nodding, others frowning. Rebecca rose, heart pounding, but voice firm. We're not here to tear down the community. We want fairness. We want respect. Karen's tactics, the surveillance, the threats, they aren't protecting us. They're dividing us. Karen's smile tightened, and the room grew colder. Accusations without proof will not sway this board. Just as Rebecca reached for her folder to present the evidence Lisa had given them, a sharp voice cut through the tension. Perhaps it's time for the truth to come out, said Mr. Jenkins, stepping forward from the crowd. His voice trembled, but carried strength. Karen's obsession with control isn't just about the neighborhood, it's personal. All eyes turned to him. Mr. Jenkins cleared his throat, then began recounting a story no one expected. Years ago, Karen's family lost their home here under mysterious circumstances. The HOA, in a decision she's never forgiven, approved plans that forced her parents to sell and leave. Since then, Karen has dedicated herself to controlling this community, trying to rewrite that past by ruling it completely. A gasp rippled through the room. Karen's face paled, but her voice remained sharp. That is a private matter and irrelevant to this meeting, Mr. Jenkins pressed on. It's relevant because it explains her ruthlessness, but we can't let past wounds justify tyranny. The crowd shifted, some whispering support, others watching Karen closely. Suddenly, Karen's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, eyes flashing with fury. "What's this?" she snapped, reading a text. Rebecca noticed the message before Karen could. Hide it. "They're growing stronger. Shut them down." A chill ran through the room. Before anyone could react, Karen stood abruptly. "This meeting is adjourned." The crowd hesitated, but Karen's presence filled the room with an unspoken threat. Outside, as neighbors dispersed, murmurs of rebellion mingled with fear. Mark turned to Rebecca, voice low. "That text. Karen's not just fighting us. She's got backup." Rebecca's mind raced. If Karen had unseen allies willing to shut them down, their battle was bigger than a neighborhood dispute. As night fell, the Millers returned home, nerves raw. But Rebecca couldn't shake the feeling that the biggest storm was still to come. The neighborhood was no longer the sanctuary the Millers had hoped for. Tension had escalated into an invisible war, with every glance and whisper carrying a weight of suspicion. That night, Rebecca sat at the kitchen table, her laptop glowing in the dim light. She tried to piece together the threads of Karen's network, the secret cameras, the threatening messages, the shadowy board members. Mark paced behind her, restless. "We can't keep hiding. We need to expose her." Suddenly, their phone buzzed. A new message appeared on the screen. No sender ID, just 3 chilling words. "Tonight, be ready." Rebecca's blood ran cold. Before she could ask Mark if he'd received the same message, a knock echoed at the front door, urgent, deliberate. Mark motioned for silence, creeping to the peephole. Outside stood Lisa, the young woman who had warned them before, looking worn and desperate. She slipped inside without waiting for an invitation. "They're planning something tonight," she whispered. "Karen's not just sending threats anymore. There's a meeting, a private gathering of the HOA board and some other people." "Other people?" Rebecca asked, heart pounding. Lisa nodded. "I don't know who exactly, but it's dangerous. They're planning to take stronger action, to silence anyone who resists." Mark clenched his fists. "We have to stop them." Lisa reached into her bag, pulling out a small recorder. I got an invitation to that meeting. It was meant for someone else, but I intercepted it. Rebecca's eyes widened. Can we use it to expose them? Lisa hesitated. It's risky. If we're caught, they'll come after us hard. The decision hung heavy in the room. Then, a sudden crash from the backyard shattered the tense silence. They rushed outside to find the fence panel torn down, the camera missing. Rebecca's voice trembled. They're here. Mark's phone buzzed. Again. Another anonymous message. Leave now or else. Fear clawed at them, but so did defiance. We can't back down, Rebecca said fiercely. Not now. Lisa looked toward the darkened street, her eyes sharp. Tonight, we fight back. As the night deepened, shadows moved silently through the neighborhood, and somewhere nearby, Karen's cold smile hid a plan that would change everything. Under the cover of darkness, the Millers and Lisa prepared for the confrontation that could either save their home or destroy their lives. Armed with the hidden recorder and the damning evidence, they knew tonight was the tipping point. The community center, where the clandestine meeting was set to take place, stood just a few blocks away. Rebecca's heart pounded as they approached. The building, shadows stretching long and ominous beneath the flickering streetlights. We stick together, Mark whispered. And we record everything. Inside, the room was dimly lit. The murmur of voices grew louder as they neared the entrance. Peeking through a cracked window, Rebecca spotted Karen seated at the head of a long table, flanked by grim-faced HOA, board members, and two unfamiliar men whose presence sent a chill down her spine. They're not just neighborhood bullies, Lisa said quietly. They've got real power. We need to be careful. They slipped inside, hiding near the back. The recorder was on, capturing every word. Karen's voice cut through the tension like ice. This neighborhood will be our fortress. Anyone who threatens our control will be dealt with, swiftly and without mercy. One of the men spoke next, his tone cold and authoritative. We've already initiated measures to monitor dissenters. Tonight, we escalate. Surveillance will increase, and enforcement teams will make examples. Rebecca's breath caught. Enforcement teams? This was beyond HOA regulations. This was intimidation on an entirely new level. Suddenly, Karen's eyes locked on their hiding spot. Well, well, look who's here. The door slammed open, flooding the room with harsh light. The Millers and Lisa were surrounded. Karen stood, a triumphant smile playing on her lips. You thought you could undermine me? This neighborhood belongs to us, and you don't belong here. Rebecca stepped forward, voice steady despite the fear swirling inside. We belong here as much as anyone, and your reign of terror ends tonight. Karen laughed, sharp and cruel. You have no idea what you're up against. But before the situation could spiral further, the sound of sirens blared outside. Confused, Karen's smile faltered. Mark's phone buzzed again. This time a message from an anonymous number. Help is here. Within moments, flashing lights from police vehicles illuminated the street. Turns out the evidence Lisa had gathered had been anonymously sent to the authorities earlier. An ally within the neighborhood had been quietly working behind the date. Scenes. Officers entered, reviewing the recorded meeting and confiscating devices. Karen's empire of fear was crumbling. In the weeks that followed, investigations uncovered the illegal surveillance and intimidation tactics Karen and her board had employed. Several members resigned or were removed. The neighborhood slowly began to breathe again. Rebecca and Mark stood on their porch one evening, watching children play and neighbors chatting freely. Lisa joined them, smiling. This place has a chance. Now. But as Rebecca looked toward the streetlight, a flicker of movement caught her eye, a shadow retreating into the darkness. Her phone buzzed softly. A new message. The fight isn't over. Rebecca swallowed hard. The land was theirs, but the battle for belonging had only just begun.